Sports Talk Daily with Andrew Hustler Pasterson and Michael Remis.
What's going on, everyone? Welcome to a game day edition of Winnipeg Sports Talk Daily, getting ready for the first visit of the Utah Hockey Club to the Peg, coming out of their new home in Salt Lake City. We're going to actually head down to Salt Lake and find out about the reception to the hockey club in Utah, as well as a little bit more on the team we're going to be seeing on the ice take on the Winnipeg Jets, who roll into tonight's game. Hotter than, as hot as anyone right now, 11-1, and putting up 19 goals in their last 3 games on this 3-game winning streak that started after their lone loss of the season last Monday to the Toronto Maple Leafs. So Brogan Houston's going to join us from Utah. We'll also chop it up with Mike McIntyre on the show today, get the latest on the Winnipeg Jets from Mike. And then as we count down to Super Saturday, we'll head out to Regina. Rob Vanstone's going to pop on and let us know how the Rider Nation's feeling heading into the biggest game of the year between these two teams. Of course, 3 meetings in the regular season. This one, though, for a trip to the Grey Cup. So we'll get to that as well. Great to have everyone with us. Shout out to the gang in chat. We're already seeing Vejmelka. I knew Vejmelka would be mentioned in the chat. Jet fans have long memories of some brilliant games against Winnipeg by Vejmelka. Hasn't been a great start for him so far this year, though. Both goaltenders on Utah, sub 900 save percentage. And after a team that won their first 3 games, only won 1 in their last 6, 5-4-3 right now coming into tonight's action. Listen, we're going to bring in Remis. We'll also hear from Scott Arniel. And some big news about Kyle Connor as well. He spoke to the media today, sporting a shiner. We'll show you that. And a little bit more from Connor Hellebuyck from yesterday on goalie interference. So great to have you all with us. Big thanks to the sponsors that make the show happen each and every day. Tomorrow, we'll have a playoff edition of CFL 110 after Winnipeg Sports Talk. That, of course, is brought to you by Garage Living Winnipeg. Also want to thank Princess Auto, Coolbet Canada, Fans First, the Winnipeg Jets, Rollies Transfer, Consolidated Supply, Manitoba Battery, Princess Auto, and of course Wallace & Wallace, Canadian Club, F Apparel, Little Brown Jug, Royal Sports, Boston Pizza, and we'll get to a why not question of the day as well for Not Autocorp over at Waverly and McGillivray. Michael Remis, what's going on?
So I got my Grey Cup hat on today. It's the season. We're counting down.
Oh, that's a sweet lid.
There you go. I got the Grey Cup on there. But yeah, I'm looking forward to tonight. A lot of games on the NHL slate. No NBA action, so all eyes on the NHL. Of course, hustler in the sports world. And Vejmelka, I look at the Vejmelka numbers. He is starting tonight. That just came out a couple minutes.
Oh, it is Vejmelka?
Yeah, Daily Faceoff confirmed it. It's confirmed on the website. Bell Fraser putting out on X Vejmelka. And I think this Vejmelka overblown is a bit overblown us. And yeah, Utah is going to play 11 forwards and 7 D tonight. Vejmelka starting. And look, Vejmelka's career numbers, 898 save percentage, 349 against the Jets. Those numbers are much better. 918 save percentage, 279 goals against. But he's got a 1-6-2 record. So, I mean, it was literally that one game that he stole that we can't stop thinking about. The Jets have won just about every game that he's been in the net for. So
I knew SK would be mentioning Vejmelka. I think he was pushing for the Jets to trade for him for the last couple seasons. We're good. We've got Connor Hellebuyck. But yes, Vejmelka. He had those huge games against the Jets, Leafs as well. It just hasn't been like he's not the starting goalie. He's only been in 3 games so far this year. So
he lost both
Connor
games.
Ingram's net.
Yeah, he lost both games against the Jets. He gave up 4 goals and 5 goals. He had one really good game where he made a ton of saves. They won. So yeah, Vejmelka, fake news. But he does, you pull up the name and you do remember when he stood on his head. Look, he won 1 game against the Jets in 7, so not scared. We'll see how it goes for them. I mean, just keeping the puck out of the net, that's been an issue for the Utah HC. I'm used to saying the Coyotes. Like, we talked about this, Dan, yesterday. Do you say the hockey club? I like calling them the Utah
HC.
I say the Utah HC. Like, it's funny. You look at all the apps, the TSN or the Score or whatever, and the abbreviations. It's like Blackhawk, Jets, Panthers, and then I don't think it should say hockey club. It should say Utah HC. That's what I would prefer. But how play-by-play voices, broadcasters, websites are, when your nickname is hockey club. How you're approaching that, I think, changes when you have everything as default just to use, the team name.
Even the abbreviations, like UHC, that sounds like a cryptocurrency or something like that. Like, it's not.
I thought their official abbreviation is UTA. Is that like on the broadcast when the ticker, like WPG, UTA?
Yeah, probably. UTA.
What's Elliott been using to piss everyone off?
He'll bastardize it in some ways. I mean, actually, you know what's funny? We have not yet seen an Elliott Friedman acronym for the Utah HC. Maybe we'll get that tonight. Certainly a lot of people paying attention to the way the Jets have been playing. They're looking to keep on rolling. I was joking with you earlier, Remis, that there's not even a point right now of discussing the lines, because when you're rolling like this, obviously nothing's changed. I think we should get an audio clip from Assiniboia Downs when Kirk and Stretch are going through the updates to the races when they're running through, and Kirk does that. There are no changes. That we need the Kirk Contois. There are no changes, and we can just play that quickly and then move on, because when you're rolling like this, you're not touching anything, and I don't think anyone is surprised that Scott Arneal's going to roll out this same lineup that has been rolling as of late, and obviously he's taken this team to the heights they are at the top of the league of the standings.
Yeah, I don't think there's going to be too many teams out there in the NHL that haven't really had any major injuries, that haven't had to make any line changes, but there's not too many teams out there. There's only one team that is 11-1 this season. So yes, Connor, Scheifele, Velarde, Perfetti, Nemesnikov, Ehlers, Niederreiter, Lowry, Appleton, Barron, Kupari, Iafallo, Gustafsson on the ice, rotating in at the morning skate. This is from Mitch Clinton, Morrissey, DeMello, Sandberg, Pionk, Stanley, Miller, and the fourth D pair there skating around, Fleury, Coghlan. We do have some injury news. We had yesterday Heinola and Jared Anderson-Dolan skating in non-contact jerseys. Well, they're on the ice again for the second straight day. It doesn't sound like they're going to be coming back anytime soon. Hustler, but certainly a positive development. We're all, cheering here for Bailey Heinola to come back from another injury at the start of the season, taking away a potential roster spot. And I thought Jared Anderson-Dolan fit in nicely in preseason. So those guys, yellow non-contact, and Hellebuck, he's starting in net. And I thought maybe they would go with Comrie today. Has just Utah on the schedule. You have two divisional heavy opponents coming up in Colorado and Dallas. But he's the guy, Hellebuck. We'll see what happens. I don't know when Comrie's. I mean, you got Colorado, Dallas, Rangers, Lightning, Panthers. And then Panthers. That's a murderer's row of opponents there.
It's a crazy schedule coming up with the big time, as we said. Like, the Jets are seeing some heavy hitters over the course of this next couple of weeks. And I'll put this out to the chat right now. We'll get to the why not question of the day for not Autocorp, but Waverly and McGillivray. When does Eric Comrie see the net again? We'll ask Mike this and talk about it. It wouldn't surprise me at all if Hellebuck runs this week. And if he's playing tonight, they're going to want him in the net against Colorado, and I would assume Dallas as well. That is an afternoon game. Then they've got, I believe this is the first time in about 3 weeks they'll have 2 consecutive days off. They'll head out to on the road to New York, and obviously taking on the Florida teams as well. So, yeah, there's some big games. But in the division, with the way the team's playing right now, wouldn't surprise me if we see a lot of Connor Hellebuck coming up this week. Let us know in the chat. Speaking of the chat, Brendan Matheson said, Reem, what do you think about the penalty call after a failed challenge? I think it's a bit archaic. There needs to be consideration for reasonable evidence to make a review or challenge. I mean, listen, Reem, I don't know your thoughts on that. I mean, we had it before where guys were just using their challenge as a pseudo timeout. And they needed to They needed to make sure if teams were challenging, there was a legitimate reason for it. And that's why the penalty came in. I mean, I kind of think that, much like, sometimes you don't like it, but there is a risk involved to stopping the game, sending it to the review. And I mean, listen, instances happen like on Sunday where you think you got the raw end of a bad call and then you're shorthanded. But I think overall it probably evens out over the season.
Yeah, someone was asking me this in the Discord earlier about just the whole referee. I will say that I don't like the coaches having to make challenges. It's not their responsibility to fix a ref's mistake. Mistakes happen. They've got enough to deal with. Managing challenges, I don't think should be one of them. And yeah, I agree with you. It was getting insane. Coaches were just challenging just for the hell of it. And there needed to be some kind of punishment to stop that because it was delaying games. It was silly.
A timeout was 30 seconds. The challenge is much longer, so they'd get much longer break if nothing else. And there wasn't really any punitive measures to a bad one. So, listen, we're going to get to a little bit more of Hellebuck, though. I mean, people are still talking about that goaltender interference incident on a Sunday here in Winnipeg. Heard the guys talking about it on 32 Thoughts. I think Elliot, felt the same way as pretty much everyone in Winnipeg did. Haven't heard anyone come out and say, you know what, yeah, that was the right call. By the way, great handle. Oh, you didn't know? Well, you better call somebody. Says, win or loss tonight, and going forward, this team has a different air about them. I feel you, oh, you didn't know. These practice interviews today are a great look into a confident and loose team that loves playing hockey as a group. I mean, they are feeling it right now, and it does seem like they've really come together, very determined to move on from a disappointing end to last year. And as I say, the results sort of speak for themselves. We're going to get to some of those practice interviews in just a minute, but we should start off with the coach, Scott Arniel. And of course, Winnipeg fans getting a chance to see Utah HC for the first time. The artist formerly known as the Coyotes. Here's what Arnie had to say on the visitors coming into tonight.
But the big thing that jumps out watching them play, looking at their stats and the analytics, the defensive part of the game is real good. It's been a lot better, and it's an area that they don't give you a whole lot, so you got to work for it. Obviously they've obviously taken some time and done a lot of work with it, so it's going to mean that we have to work to get our space and get inside ice, and it's not going to be easy once we get in there.
All right, so Scott Arniel on the listen, they were playing defense. They're defending well. Neither Vejmelka or Ingram have very good numbers. I mean, both goals against well above 3, and save percentages in the 880s. So they will be challenged tonight, especially if they take any penalties. The Winnipeg Jets, far and away the number 1 power play team in the league, and what a change that is from last year. 44.1%, a 10-point gap between Winnipeg and the second-place team in the league in the Colorado Avalanche. And it hasn't just been the top unit. We saw Alex Iafallo score a big power play goal in the third period of the game on Saturday against the Tampa Bay Lightning. And Scott Arniel talked a little bit about the internal competition between 2 power play units that have both been really successful so far this year.
The one thing probably jumps out, they both play, there's a different style to both units, and it has to do with probably the shots, the left-handed shots on the second. So it gives us kind of a different sort of two-edged sword, kind of going at the other, and especially the penalty killers are expecting one unit to do one thing, and then the change happens, we're going to something else. So I think that's been beneficial. I like the fact, though, that, whoever starts the power play, if they haven't got their work done in a minute, they do come off, which is great, and it gives that second unit a chance to get out there. Just more than anything, though, they're just sticking to sort of the pre-scout and what we're looking at against the opposition and going out and executing.
All right, so there's Scott on the power play. Cole Perfetti, after, a kind of slow first 3 games for he and his line is running right now. And Arnie talked about using Cole Perfetti in more situations this year, like at the end of the game.
have to be in a position to get these guys out early in the season and get them experience out there, because it is a different sort of animal when you're going 6 against 5. And it is interesting because the Lowry line had been out. They pulled their goalie fairly early, down 2. So it was kind of down 1. They pulled their goalie early, but at the end of the day, it was when they got down 2 again. It was still coming. It was just making sure they got an opportunity. I wanted to see Kapari's line to make sure they got an opportunity. I think that if you can take advantage of some of those situations, it helps you down the road.
All right, so there's Scott Arniel. One more clip from Arnie, and Remis sort of touched on this already, but Jared Anderson-Dolan and Ville Heinola are back skating, although they are in non-contact jerseys. Here's the update on the 2 players that have been injured so far this season, looking to come back in JAD and Ville Heinola.
I mean, that was first day yesterday. Those yellow shirts may be on for a while. The biggest thing is they can't get hit with pucks is the biggest thing. So they can do almost all the drills, but once it gets into something where there's live fire and they can get hit, and especially like penalty kill, things like that, we'll just kind of, because it's both their feet there, we'll just stay away from anything like that. And then, they'll get their conditioning. We'll go see how they are when we get down the road a bit.
All right, so there's a little update on Heinola and Anderson-Dolan from Scott Arniel. And, people were asking in the chat earlier today, Remis, about Ville and whether he may potentially do a conditioning stint. I would suggest that probably happens. I do think that he's going to want to be as healthy as possible and, as comfortable as possible when he does get a chance to get into this Jet lineup at some point. Playing a few games at the American Hockey League level with the Moose would probably be a good idea, considering the amount of time and games that he's missed already this year.
Yeah, well, and I think the fact that they keep winning and haven't had any injuries, there's no reason to rush things. So if you have the ability to send him down, get him some games in, get him up to speed, take advantage of that, and then reevaluate, because he would require waivers normally to be sent down, and if they don't have a spot for him right away, you can delay that decision. So look, the team's winning, and they haven't had to change the lineup at all. There's no injuries, so I think they're going to take their time here as long as they can, unless there's some reason where they need a body to get into the lineup. They're certainly not there, right now.
Kyle Connor, his scoring streak continues. He can tie Kevin Stevens for the longest point-scoring streak to open a season by a U.S.-born player. And listen, Remis, Kyle Connor just keeps scoring and scoring and scoring. And congratulations are in order, because KFC and his wife, Allie, are going to be adding to the Connor family at some point. I guess on Instagram they announced that they're expecting. So I see a lot of well wishes for Kyle and Allie in the chat as well from Jet fans.
Yes, Kyle Connor got married this summer, and what comes after marriage? Hustler, a baby announcement, and here it is on Instagram yesterday, posting, "We can't wait to meet you, baby girl." And says here, baby Connor coming soon with a little pair of overalls, a nice stuffy, and the ultrasound pictures. So congratulations to Kyle Connor soon.
A stuffy? Is that what that little doll is called?
Isn't that what? Yeah, like a stuffed animal. It's like a term. Oh. You're not in the dad zone. So
stuffy. I didn't realize that's a slang.
Yeah. I don't know what is that? I forget what that thing is called. I just bought one for my brother's new baby.
It's like a puppet.
Yeah, it's like a stuffed animal mixed with a blanket that, a baby maybe will hold to sleep. My daughter's got like 5 of them in the crib with her, so I'm no stranger to a picture like this. So
we're learning new things today on WST. So anyways, congratulations to Kyle Connor. He did meet the media today sporting a Shiner, courtesy of, I believe, the incident with Kucherov in the game on Sunday. Listen, there's a lot of talk about that. Kyle Connor went into the protocol, was cleared, but did not return to the game. Here's how the Jets star saw the hit that he certainly didn't see when it happened on Sunday.
Yeah, just kind of an unfortunate hit. They pulled me off right away. for the concussion protocol, and obviously every player doesn't want to miss any time. So obviously glad to have a protocol like that. Someone up top looking out for us, even when I'm pissed off. I'm sure I look back on that and thankful. And there's scenarios that guys get pulled off, or down the road it's. They're very happy to do it, and everything checked out. Though I felt good, and everything's fine.
Yeah. Have you had a chance to watch the video, and if you have, what are your thoughts on the play?
Not really. I don't want to get into whether it was dirty or not. So it's watched it a couple times, but your guys up for interpretation on that. Yeah.
Okay.
The shiner from that? Sorry, Kyle?
Yeah.
Did your visor hit your eye, or?
I think it was when I fouled through and hit Chernak, or one of those scenarios. Yeah.
All right. Well, as he said, he won't say anything on it, but we can all make our own deductions on it. And I think the black eye speaks for itself. That it was a sketchy hit. It was unnecessary and a little dirty. I'll just say it.
Yeah, I mean, Kucherov, he's a big guy, throws his body around. Kyle Connor's got his back to him. He's engaged with another defenseman, looking down at the puck. Kucherov coming around the net and just drills him in the back, and he said his eye caught Cernak. I would love to do one of those press conferences where they ask Arneal about the goalie interference. He's like, well, you guys all saw it out there. You're not going to throw them under the bus, but you know what everyone's thinking. And they ask Kyle Connor, well, what do you think about that? He's like, I'm not going to call it dirty, but it's up to your interpretation. So I love
Watch
it
it a few times and come back to me. Let me know what you think.
Yeah, let me know what you think. So, yeah, no, I didn't think there was going to be a suspension or a fine, but it wasn't a great hit. It was certainly
you know what?
dirty.
They could have easily fined him for that. I mean, as I said, knocked the Jets' best player or best forward out of the game, left him with the black eye, and there was no way he could defend himself. He was engaged with another player. It was from behind. I mean, I don't know. I think you don't want that happening. And I mean, I think, listen, they're not gonna suspend him for a game. But I mean, what if Kyle Connor was hurt on that play? Then I think we're having a much bigger conversation, and it's usually more the result as much as the act that gets the suspension.
You're absolutely right. What if his head hit Cernak, instead of getting a black eye, he got a concussion and was down on the ice and, wasn't okay the next day?
We would be losing it today on this program.
We would be losing it. We would be saying there should be a suspension. This was a dirty hit. You know what? You're right, Huss. So that's why the NHL supplemental discipline has been really dumb, going by the result rather than the act, because, it could have been much worse than just a black eye. But, hey, he's okay. And back to tie the record here tonight. He can match it, as you said, most points scoring streak to open a season by a U.S.-born player, Kevin Stevens, 92, 93. What a record that would be to match, Huss, hey?
You know what? I'm looking forward to hearing this clip because he was asked about how he's going to approach the game, knowing he can match Stevens for the longest point-scoring streak to open a season by a U.S.-born player. Not sure whether he even knew that was a record, but here's what he had to say when asked about it.
I mean, that's exactly what I've been doing, not focusing on it at all, just focusing on what I can control and the details and how I arrive to the rink, and just trying to be the best teammate that I can for these guys here and what I can do and to help the team win. And obviously that's played all my strengths and use my speed, and I think all that stuff, like, it's obviously it's been a pretty good start to the year for the team and me personally, but I think it all takes care of itself if you're just paying attention to details and playing the right way.
Well, and speaking of playing the right way, he certainly looks hockey player right now. He's in full Movember mode on, what is it, the 5th of November? I mean, that stash, he'll be up for one of the top mustaches in the league, I think, if he keeps growing that duster over the course of the next month. But he talked about playing the right way, and I kind of singled him out yesterday for that play that he made, just an incredible back check after Josh Morrissey's stick broke to prevent what would have been a clear-cut breakaway and at least challenge Hagel going in on Hellebuck, and obviously Hellebuck was able to make the save, and kind of indicative of what he's done this year, in addition to all the brilliance in the offensive end. Connor's talked a little bit about the Jets' buy-in to team defense from top to bottom in the lineup.
It didn't happen overnight. It's something that we worked on for years now, and you can tell this core that's been together. It's every single year we meet with management, we meet with each other. It's how can we get better? That's been the main focus. We need to get better as a group and improve. And it's in this group. We know we have a championship team in this group, and it's not always a straight line to the top. You gotta learn, you gotta develop, and you kind of seeing that here. And it's a pretty motivated group. I think Arnie does a good job of not letting us get happy with where we're at.
All right, that was a hell of a clip from Kyle Connor there, Remis. And I think it is a bit of a window into the psyche of this team that has done a lot of good things in the regular season the last couple of years, but obviously has fallen far shorter than they wanted to or expected to come playoff time. And I think in a lot of ways that has built up a level of determination and acceptance to exactly what Kyle Connor said, that they need to be better, they need to improve. And the buy-in that Scott Arniel has from this group, I think, is beyond what anyone could have imagined so early in his tenure as head coach. But, one of the things that happens when you're winning is that, as much as Kyle said, Arnie doesn't let us get too happy about where we're at, is focusing on the next one and knowing what it took to get to where they are right now.
And I think that having the consistency in the locker room, not a lot of changes, and the coaching staff, you just keep building and adding on more layers. You're adding on, team defense. Okay, you got that. And then you're adding on, let's improve the power play. They're all looking for areas to improvement. They're certainly improving them. And look, last year, the playoffs left a bad taste in everyone's mouth, but they're back, starting 11-1, trying to get back to the playoffs so they can show everyone, hey, this, we're going to be able to continue this game for 82 plus. So well done to them. And I really enjoyed that quote from Kyle Connor as well.
Yeah, it was a real good one. Now, the Jets find themselves at the top of the league standings, but also the Central Division, 4 points up on the Minnesota Wild, although Minnesota does have a game in hand. They're playing the Kings tonight, who played last night. I mean, a great start from Minnesota at 8-1-2. And the Dallas Stars losing both those games in Finland, dropping back to 7-4, and still waiting for the Predators and the Avalanche to sort of wake up and start challenging into the top tier of the Central Division. But Kyle Connor just talked about the Central early on this year with the Jets on top.
Yeah, I mean, it's a great division. I mean, you look top to bottom. You got teams up and coming, and you got some veteran teams out there, like the Stars and Colorado have been there, multiple years, and we like to think we're part of that group as well. And at the same time, you're playing a team 3-4 times, and you get playoff series. The way our playoff structure is organized, you're going to get some rivalries and you're going to get some heated exchanges, and I think that's just the nature of the beast. And whether that's good or not for the game, it's what it is.
All right, there's Kyle Connor. And one more from Kyle. He's been drawing a lot of headlines with the offensive start that he's had, in addition to what his team has done. Kyle was asked if he's playing the best hockey of his career right now, in his opinion.
That's not for me to decide. I think I'm feeling good, and I think this group wants to win, and so do I. And it's just reflecting on how we approach every single game. We're not looking too far ahead. We're not looking at the past, what we did. It's on to the next one. I think I've kind of taken that personally and in my mindset and how I approach the game, and I think it's helped me get to where I've been at.
Really good stuff from Kyle Connor. I don't know whether it sounds even more badass looking at him do it with the black eye, Remis, but this is a guy that is taking every opportunity very seriously, and you can hear him sort of speak to the determination of this team that we've seen through a dozen games.
Well, he knows he's going to be a dad, Huss, and he's got a family. He's got a support, so he needs to bring his A game every night. Congratulations.
And a new contract to earn.
And new contract to earn as well after next season. So, look, they're motivated. I do think it left a bad taste in their mouth at the end of last season. They're coming out looking to improve all areas. And Kyle Connor, as you said, he does have a contract coming up. He was eligible for an extension, July, after this season in the summer. And I'm looking at the point scores. He's got 19, 2 off the lead. Kaprizov having an outstanding season. Could he, go for the Rocket Richard? He is 1 behind the leader There's 4 guys tied for 10. So he's going to be in the conversation all year. And Team USA on the horizon as well in the 4 Nations. So big. It's going to be a big year for Kyle Connor coming up. And the Jets are going to have some big decisions as well about contracts. A number of guys, who are UFAs after the season, RFAs as well. So, this offseason, very strange with pretty much no turnover, Dylan and Schmidt, but that's not going to be the case next year and the year after.
I think that's highly unlikely, and a huge opportunity for this group to do something special together. And they've certainly started off the season on the right foot. Listen, we got to get to some of this Connor Hellebuyck, and you know what? Maybe we'll play the top one again, because I know there's still a lot of people talking about the infamous goaltender interference non-call and challenge on the weekend. Remo, play the first one 11 if you can. This was Connor Hellebuyck yesterday. He's not speaking on game days, with his thoughts on what happened on Saturday to get the Lightning on the board with the 1-0 lead, and then, of course, the power play goal right afterwards on the unsuccessful Winnipeg challenge.
Just when I thought we were getting somewhere, they go and make that decision. That was clearly goal interference. Everyone that I know knows it. I think majority of the people in the hockey world know that was goal interference. The only guys that didn't think so were the guys in charge of making the call, which is unfortunate. I've tried my best to help over the last 4 or 5 years, and I'm getting to a point in my career where I'm a little more family oriented. So if it's not going to get anywhere, I might have to move it on to the next guy and pass it on. I've tried to help. I've tried to make it more black and white. That for me was about as black and white as you can make it. And I know it's sometimes going to be a tough call, but I've brought in clips very, very similar to that exact play, and explained why I think it was goal interference, and I guess they just don't agree.
All right, so there's what Hellebuyck had to say. Now, there's a little bit more to this, and he expanded on it because, as he mentioned, in the past, he had been vocal in presenting ideas to the National Hockey League for the integrity of the game, protecting goaltenders. And Ellie just expanded a little bit on how it works to presenting those ideas to the powers that be in the league.
Well, you have a competition committee meeting every year. So you have a bunch of players. I shouldn't say a bunch, a couple players, a couple player reps, a couple GMs, a couple owners that all get together, and a couple coaches that all get together and discuss new rules and changes and a few things that we think need to be implemented. And this is one of those things that I have been pushing to get it to the forefront of this meeting. And I think it was about 2 years ago, I had my own little spiel on there about making it black and white. I think I talked for about 45 minutes, brought in a bunch of cliff notes, brought in a bunch of clips, and just tried to hash it out with them, and I don't think it got anywhere.
I would pay money to be in a 45-minute dissertation on goaltender interference from Connor Hellebuyck. I will tell you that. Here's one more, though, because this is the question that I think everyone was asking themselves, or trying to make sense of it, at least in the call, is the definition of incidental contact. Here's a little bit more from the Jets' 2-time Vezina winner.
Incidental contact is going for the puck and maybe pushing the pad or hitting the glove or something that's around the puck. When you miss the puck and drive the goalie 3 feet into the back of the net, that's no longer incidental contact. That's, I missed the puck, this is the only thing I can do to affect the play, it's goal interference. And I try to describe this to them, like if they want to make puck first contact, so be it. I'm good if that puck is loose and you're making puck first contact and you make that a battle, I'm good with that. And you drive us into the net, I'm good with that. But that's the other thing, they say if you put the puck on a pad and drive the pad into the net with the puck, it's no goal. So why was that counted last night when he didn't have the puck? Regardless of where it is, it's the same output. And there is ways of making that black and white. Like I said, if you make puck first and you push that in and you want to count that, at least we all know. We all know what to call. We all know how to battle. We can adapt to it. They didn't really go for it when I said that should be a good play, and they liked where things were. So in my eyes, where things were is that should have been goal interference last night. Kind of confused about what was missed in that play.
Connor, you're not the only one. We were all a little bit befuddled by that call, but the Jets managed to come back, move on. Hellebuck back in the net tonight against Vejmelka and the Utah HC. Let's get to it. The chat's been popping today. People are fired up. By the way, we've got over 400 in here, pushing 5. If you have not already, hit that subscribe button. We are so close to getting to 12,000 subscribers on YouTube. Please hit that subscribe button if you haven't already, and give a thumbs up for the episode while you are at it. And let's get into the YouTube chat for a little fan feedback brought to you by Fans First, your number one spot for buying and selling tickets on the resale market for Winnipeg games. And what you see is what you pay, no fees, period, for Fans First. All right, the feedback is a lot of people talking about Kyle Connor and the reaction to what he had to say. Jay Miller, nice hearing KC talk like this. Natalie from Winnipeg said, okay, he almost sounds like a coach, like in his responses. So much maturity and insight and leadership. Sicardi, take it one game at a time. Where have we heard that before? Well, we've heard it about 1,000,000 times. It is somewhat cliche, but at the end, there is a reason why things become cliches, is because they're true. You can't win a game next week tonight. You got to focus on who you're playing. And that tonight is the Utah Hockey Club. A bunch of other comments. Just now, it tells you they're focused on the top and people really enjoying it. This is awesome. Lots of info in here. And then this stuff just fires them up more. And then lots of conversation on the challenges. Brendan Matheson, who asked the original question, said, the fine is the least they should have done. This is about the hit on Connor from Kucherov. The fine is the least they should have done. NHL has to protect his stars, and KC and Winnipeg never gets the benefit of the doubt. Ryan Strome didn't get suspended for knee on knee. Yes, we could go down many issues that we've had with the way the Jets have been handled by player safety in the past, but I think some acknowledgement of that play on Kucherov by player safety would have been a positive. Keep the comments coming in for fan feedback, brought to you by Fans First, fansfirst.ca, by fans, for fans, no fees. All right, tomorrow we'll be firing up a big playoff edition of CFL 110, brought to you by Garage Living Winnipeg. And gang, even though November's here, there's no slowing down for the guys at Garage Living. Seems there's lots of messy and cluttered garages in and around Winnipeg, and it is a big problem for some people. I was talking with Pat the other day, and he mentioned he was at a 5-year-old home in a new neighborhood, and the owners have never parked in their garage because it is so full of stuff. Well, Garage Living Winnipeg can fix those problems and give you an organized garage with a place for everything. This is your chance to clear the clutter, organize and beautify your garage with slat wall, polyaspartic floor coating, and made in Canada premium metal cabinetry. You can check out all of their work at garageliving.com and give Pat Kanuga a buzz at 204-999-1234 to book a free in-garage consultation or make an appointment to meet him in their showroom at 981 Main Street. Garage Living Winnipeg, garages made for living. Got to shout out our friends over at Rolly's Transfer. The number one most trusted name in moving here in Manitoba. Family owned for over 60 years. If you and your family have a move coming up in the next few months, get the white glove treatment from Rolly's and take as much of the stress out of that goes with moving and leave it to the experts. What you want to do is pop on over to their beautiful new website at rollies.com. You can find out more about all their services, the history of the company. But for your move, what you want to do is click on that request an estimate button. And first thing you do is pop in WST in the promo code for a special discount on moving services and moving supplies for Winnipeg Sports Talk listeners. And then let them know when you're moving, where you're moving, and what needs to be moved. And the friendly staff at Rolly's will turn it around quickly with a quote for you to get you and your family onto your next destination. For your next move, make it Rolly's, the most trusted name in moving in Manitoba, family owned for over 60 years. Find out more, request a quote today over at Rollies.com. And I had a great chat with Donnie the other day. Manitoba Battery is ready for winter. We can wait. We can wait for it to start, but you better be ready. And this is the time right now to get ready for winter before winter gets you. No one likes freezing their ass off outside trying to get a car started in minus 30 temps in the dead of winter. Avoid that at all costs and let Manitoba Battery help you with avoid these frustrations before it's too late. You can get your battery tested for free at either Manitoba Battery location. If it needs to be replaced, you'll save at least $10 off the battery you need, making the best battery prices in Manitoba even better. And they've got booster cables set up. The 12-foot cables, $19.95. 25-foot cables for $59.99. So you can help a friend who didn't prep for winter like you did. And they also have the 2,000 amp jump starter for just $129.99. Keep warm, avoid frustration, and get ready for winter before winter gets you. Manitoba Battery, the only battery specialist that makes your life simpler with free home delivery on purchases over $60 and 2 convenient locations to serve you. Head on over to manitobabattery.com to learn more and get ready for winter. All right, Mike McIntyre coming up in a few minutes. Right now, though, let's welcome in Brogan Houston covering Utah HC for a little chat on the visitors tonight at Canada Life Centre. Brogan, welcome to Winnipeg Sports Talk. How are you?
I'm good, Andrew. How are you? Thanks for having me.
I'm great. I'm fired up. It's been fun watching the Winnipeg Jets. They're 11-1 right now. The conversations on the show and the vibes have been very high as of late. Although, listen, having been here in 2011 when we got the team back, kind of had vibes like that seeing the launch of Utah HC. I mean, we'll get to the team and what's happening on the ice right now, but how would you describe the excitement for the new team there in Utah and the way that it's been received by fans?
Yeah, it's crazy how well people have received this team. Maybe it's just that every conversation I've ever had in my entire life revolves around hockey, but I haven't had a conversation here that didn't revolve around hockey. Like everybody is invested in the team. Everybody cares how they do. Everybody knows the names of the certain players and everything. And people have all their opinions on whatever is going on. And so it seems like everybody's just buzzing. These games are crazy to attend. Like they're the loudest games I've ever been to. And I've been to quite a few NHL arenas. This is the loudest one I've ever been to.
Well, so, listen, I always historically supported the Jazz so well. And I think it's pretty clear Ryan Smith knew what he was doing. He knew the community, he knew the area, and he knew the demand for high-level professional sports. And listen, I don't think it's a surprise the way Utah has sort of embraced this new team. I do have to ask you, though, seeing the players, how are they enjoying it right now? Because they really are going from, listen, I'm sure they loved living in Phoenix or in the area, but they were an afterthought in that market for so long, and it really seems like they are a big deal. To be honest, it's very reminiscent of the guys that were Atlanta Thrashers in 2010-11 coming here to Winnipeg with the way that team was welcomed here in 2011.
Yeah, I think that's the perfect comparison. I think most of them could probably walk down the street in Arizona and nobody would bother them. And I don't think that's the case here. Like you just see, I've never been out with the players in public or anything. I'm always, at the rink and stuff, and you hear stories of them, getting stopped and Turney was saying he gets recognized a bunch. I asked even like Tika Gimlet, he was saying like he gets recognized all the time in Utah. So not that he's here in Utah anymore, but when he was here for training camp, he was getting recognized. So like people know the players, and I think that's a really cool adjustment for them. They also like that they're kind of the front and center right now. Like there's no other sports team that is really in the front of the market right now. There's college sports and there's the Jazz and stuff, but people are fixated on the Utah Hockey Club, and I think there's kind of this level of like celebrity status almost that comes with it that they didn't really have in Arizona. So I think that they're enjoying it, and I think that it's kind of the right level of attention. Like I grew up in Western Canada, I always supported the Canucks growing up and whatnot. And you hear of, guys that can't even walk down the street without getting mobbed by people. And, they go to the grocery store and they just get harassed by people. It's not like that here. It's kind of like that happy medium. So it seems like it's the perfect place to play. Maybe that's just me. I don't know.
Well, yeah, listen, I think we knew that this was going to be a great hockey market. And I think a lot of people would do it. This doesn't happen without a leader. And you mentioned sort of celebrities. I mean, I got such a kick out of that opening game and seeing Ryan Smith sitting there ringside with the backwards hat beside Gary Bettman, a place that he never sits. He sort of really is out there in the community. I mean, obviously very successful and very well known, but he's really dove in head first into this hockey venture to go along with the basketball that had been so successful. Is he out there as much? I mean, I'd imagine he's as synonymous with the team as almost any of the players.
Yeah, exactly. Like people don't know the names of every single player. Everybody knows the name of Ryan Smith, though. He brought hockey to Utah, and I think people appreciate that. Like he brought something else to do, some other like big entertainment thing that they can do. And the guy also has so much energy. Like you look at him and you think he's my age. I'm 24. You think he's about my age, maybe a little older than me. He's actually almost 50. Like he's just this energizer bunny. He's always on, always going. Gary Bettman said he's the only person that could have brought a team together in 6 months like this. And he's the man.
Brogan, let's talk about the on ice product. I mean, it was such a great start. I mean, they win those first 3 games. I mean, especially out at MSG against the Rangers. But they've sort of fallen back to earth a little bit. I mean, where is this team at as they come into the Peg tonight to take on the Jets, who are 11-1 and on top of the NHL standings?
Yeah, I think falling back to earth is probably the right phrase to say there. They were on top of the world. The fans were loving it. Even that first road trip, the fans, weren't obviously there with them, but there's still like that energy and people were loving it. Like all of our content was getting the most views and everything, and people were tuning into every single game. Like it was this big thing, and then all of a sudden the road trip ends and they lose a couple games, and then they lose a couple more, and they've fallen back to earth. And so now I think we're probably starting to see the actual team where we can probably expect them to be throughout the season. So they're probably realistically a bubble playoff team. They're probably realistically not going to win 80% of their games. They're not going to finish with 115 points. They're not going to be the first team in the Central Division. Obviously, the Jets are probably going to take that. And so I think, they're just kind of falling back to earth. And I do think that they can kind of see what they have now. That initial buzz has kind of worn off from winning all those.
Yeah, you get that big rush right out of the gate. But there's 82 games in a season, and listen, I think unlike an expansion team, this team came stocked with a lot of talented young players. I mean, obviously Clayton Keller is a star in the NHL right now, and he's leading the club. But when I look at this roster, and I mean, Dylan Guenther was the man in the first week of the season. He had that incredibly hot start. We saw Logan Cooley last year kind of get into the league as a rookie and really make an impact. To me, those 2 young players sort of centerpieces of the future, along with Clayton Keller, who is the present right now and really the guy that stirs the drink for the HC.
Yeah, exactly. And I think I'll throw Mikhail Sergachev into that mix. I think Josh Stone, although he's in the minors right now, he has the chance to kind of take the reins eventually and become that same kind of guy. So I think, probably 2 or 3 years down the road, this will be kind of in the position where the Jets are now, where they're just winning most of the games and on top of the world. I think right now they're down to earth, like you said.
The Sergachev acquisition, that's, I think, when we knew that this wasn't the same old Coyotes, that, this organization was looking to move forward and, to be able to acquire a player like that, in that trade with Tampa. We actually saw Connor Geekie, who was part of that trade and a former Winnipeg Ice player, mix it up in a very controversial, not called goalie interference play on Sunday. But we spent enough time yesterday talking about that. As we come into the game tonight, how is the coach handling things? I mean, he's a very respected coach. He's done a very good job kind of moving forward. Where's his patience level at with the club as he tries to get them back, winning more games than they're losing?
Patience level, that's a good question. So I think he understands probably better than anybody else does that it's an 82-game season, that these stretches of wins and losses mean a lot less than this consistent type of play. And so he obviously wants to keep everybody kind of neutral and keep everybody, not too high, not too low. Like he wants everybody to stick to what they do best and move from there. Now, what I wonder is how built Tournier is for the playoffs. I said this in your article a few days ago, that he came in to develop the young players. And so he's done a really, really good job at that for the last 4 or 5 years, however long he's been in there. He's done an excellent job at developing the young players and helping them to take the next step from being 20-something-year-old kids to mature adults and good hockey players. And so we'll see now what he is built for in terms of actual success on the ice. He's no longer going to be relied on as this development coach as much as he is to be a winning coach that takes his team to the playoffs and further than that. So I guess this is really a good test run for him to see what he's really made of.
Couple big injuries on the blue line in John Marino, who's out long-term, and now Sean Dursey as well. But it has given an opportunity to, a young first-rounder like Maverick Lamoureux to get in. And listen, Lauder-Imagn picked up as well. This is as much as for the present. I mean, just to ice 6 NHL defensemen right now, things were getting a little thin there to start the season.
Yeah, it is. Thin is the right word to use there. They were calling up everybody from the AHL. Maverick Lamoureux had only played 4 games in the AHL, and all of a sudden he's an NHL player, and he's been on the roster since. But everybody has kind of stepped up into that role. Michael Kesselring has become, he was maybe a third pairing guy last year. He's become a bona fide top 4 right shot defenseman now, which is found money for the Utah Hockey Club. Vladislav Kolyachonok is taking a good step. He's a young kid that has a really high ceiling in this league. And then, the Lauder-Imagn acquisition was excellent. They didn't have a guy that could move the puck all that well. They really struggled with that first pass. They would get hemmed in their own zone all the time. Now that they have Lauder-Imagn, that's kind of one of his stronger suits, is he can take the puck from his own zone, pass it all the way out, and all of a sudden they have an on-man rush going the other way or something like that. It seems pretty simple, but they didn't have a guy that was good at that. And so I think that Lauder-Imagn acquisition, for more reasons than just that, but I think that acquisition has been great for them, as well as a couple of guys stepping up and taking on bigger roles and doing more.
Hey, I've got to ask you about a guy that we loved on the program during his time here, former Jet, Kevin Stenlund. How's Stenny doing after winning a Stanley Cup and signing there as a free agent?
Well, he goes and wins the Stanley Cup, and then he goes and wins every faceoff in Utah.
Best in the league.
Yeah, I don't know if he's lost a single one. He's excellent. He's really a role player. He knows what his job is. I think he has 1 goal this year, but he's killed almost every single penalty they've taken. He's won almost every faceoff that he's taken. He is kind of one of those guys in the locker room that people can turn to and ask for advice and ask for help and that kind of thing. Plus, he's a big body. Obviously, you know that. He's pretty hard to move from the puck and that kind of thing. So they brought him in to do a job, and he's doing that job extremely well.
Hey, Brogan, before we go, got to ask you about goaltending, and wait to see whether it's Ingram or Vejmelka. I was telling you before, there's a lot of Jet fans that get a little freaked out when we mention Vejmelka, because he's had some huge games against Winnipeg in the past. But right now, I mean, neither of the Utah goalies have particularly good numbers. I mean, an 889 save percentage for Vejmelka in 3 games, and Connor Ingram, the main guy, at 881. Has it been they haven't been good enough, or is this kind of on the team as well, the way they've been playing in front of their netminders?
That's a loaded question. I think it's a little bit of both. So I do think that each goalie has had a few soft ones that they would like to have back, but who doesn't, right? Like they have a really vulnerable position, right? And one bad bounce can end up costing them the game and those save percentages, right? So it really is more of a team stat than anything else. And the team around them has also been shaky at times. And so I don't think that you can place the blame on Ingram or on Vejmelka or on the defense corps, but maybe on the group of them. They could be better. And that comes with experience. That comes with, a better team. Like once they get their guys back, Dursey and Marino and such, those numbers will go up. And if if we're wondering about Ingram for Team Canada, I think he's one of the guys that should get the invitation.
Yeah, well, that story, we're going to be talking a lot. I mean, there's opportunity for in the Canadian net, whether it's Binnington or Aiden Hill, who have the cups, and Montembeault. I mean, but Ingram certainly, as a guy that we've heard his name in the mix for it, I would suggest to him go on a heater for the next month if he wants to be on that team right now. Though hopefully not tonight. Although the Jets will certainly pose a big challenge for the netminders on the other club, the way they've been lighting the lamp right now and winning hockey games. Brogan, thanks for doing this. We'll definitely look forward. I mean, this is a big now divisional rivalry.
Yeah.
Definitely going to try and get down to Utah at some point to see a game there, but hopefully we'll see you in the Peg at some point. And obviously this is just the first of many matchups between the Winnipeg Jets and Utah HC, and we'll look forward to catching up later on this season. Thanks for jumping on today.
Sounds good. Let me know when you're in Salt Lake and we'll catch dinner or something like that.
All right, good stuff with Brogan. Appreciate him jumping on with us, and we'll look forward to having Mike McIntyre come on for the latest from the Jets side of things in just a minute. Hey, Saturday is the day, folks, where we look to put the win in Winnipeg, not once but twice. Jets and Dallas Stars at 2 p.m., and then Princess Auto Stadium is going to be packed with a sold-out crowd for the CFL West Final. Of course, Princess Auto wishes both of our teams continued success this week, and especially on Super Saturday. Of course, Princess Auto, proud sponsors of the Winnipeg Jets and the Bombers, and of course, the home of the Bombers, Princess Auto Stadium. And if you are heading down, Princess Auto Tailgate's going to get open early on Saturday, 2 p.m. The East Final will be shown, and $5 beers, $3.50 poppin' hot dogs. The party will be rocking. Get down there early. And, of course, you can visit Princess Auto at one of their 3 Manitoba locations, Panet Road, Portage Avenue West, as well as Brandon, for the most unique assortment of tools and equipment around. Everything you need to complete the projects on your list or start something new is at Princess Auto. Shop 24/7, 365 at princessauto.com. And I'll tell you what, Princess Auto Stadium better be stocked up on the Canadian Club, because Bomber fans are going to be ready to go. And we've seen what a big party that stadium is when the Winnipeg Blue Bombers are playing. I expect the biggest party of the season, and hopefully afterwards as well, if the Bombers can pull off a win. But of course, Canadian Club, Canada's oldest favorite Canadian whiskey, is the official spirit of the Winnipeg Blue Bombers. You can pick it up throughout the stadium on Saturday. And of course, keep your eyes out for Canadian Club and Ginger Ale, too. Premixed cocktail in cans available at Princess Auto Stadium. And of course, your local beer vendor as well. And with the holidays just around the corner, whether it's for entertaining or gift giving, be sure to pick up Canadian Club at your local Manitoba liquor marts. Shout out to our friends at Wallace & Wallace, the fencing and overhead door specialists in the city, serving Winnipeg since 1946. If your property needs the security and protection of a new fence, they have you covered with vinyl, ornamental, welded wire, chain link, or wood fences. And if you've got garage door needs, like a new one for your home to perfectly match it, they've got you covered there with the largest selection of overhead garage doors in town. You can check them out, 452-2700. The Wallace & Wallace team will arrange a time to come out and give you a free estimate. You can also visit them at wallacefences.com, wallacedoors.com, or pop down to their showroom on Lawson Crescent off of Kenniston. And hey, just as we bring in Mike McIntyre, gang, holidays around the corner, change of the seasons. Guys, if you're looking into your closet and realize that you need to up your menswear game, get on down to F Apparel at 190 Smith Street, the #1 store for menswear in town, including custom suits beginning at $400, chinos, golf pants, custom shirts, both tucked and untucked styles, and the biggest and best selection of men's accessories as well. If you are getting married or in a wedding party in the upcoming year, be sure to talk to the guys at F as well about a 15% discount when you get your suits for the big day at F Apparel. Again, F's at 190 Smith Street. Check them out online or book an appointment to come in for a fitting at F, that's EPH apparel.com. All right, let's welcome in our pal Mike McIntyre from the Winnipeg Free Press. Mike, what's going on? How are you?
I'm doing okay, Huss. Good thing the cameras weren't rolling a couple minutes ago. I just got absolutely mauled by Piper, who decided she wanted both to snuggle and to rumble. She's in a feisty mood today. She literally just left me now and went and clubbed her older brother in the head. Roundhouse right. So we may have a cameo. Pardon the hair, by the way, because it got a little tussled in our tussle. Shades of Logan Stanley and who'd he drop him with? Zemgus Girgensons.
Yeah, Girgensons.
Piper was the Logan Stanley. I was Girgensons. I was on the ground turtling.
You know what? Lots of interesting audio coming out of the last couple days. And listen, we'll get to Hellebuck in a minute. But Kyle Connor spoke today with a pretty big shiner. And listen, much like the coaches not wanting to have too much to say about particular calls, he was going to leave it up to all of us about what we thought of the hit. But you could tell that there's a little bit of a bad taste in his mouth left by what happened at the hands of Kucherov on Sunday afternoon.
Yeah, the closest he'd come to, I guess, letting us into his frustration was saying, "Yeah, there's the combined with that stash, like that is quite the look he's got going on right now." He did say he was pissed off to get pulled by the concussion spotters, and to be clear, he wasn't criticized. He actually said he's thankful that they have concussion spotters, but he said in the heat of the moment, no player wants to come out. He said he was happy to see when he was about to come back with 30 seconds left that the Jets had added 2 empty netters and the game was decided. But yeah, I think we can read between the lines. He was not a fan of what Nikita Kucherov did to him. The black eye, by the way, for those wondering how that happened, because he was hit from behind. His head, when Kucherov drills him from behind, Kyle Connor's head then went forward into I think it was Eric Chernak, and kind of hit Eric Chernak's head. And obviously there was some contact below his eye. So yeah, he certainly looks like a hockey player right now. He's playing like an elite hockey player with points in all 12 games. And Huss, dare I say, the one thing the NHL, like Kyle Connor, a mild-mannered Kyle Connor is pretty dangerous. To use Kyle Connor's own words, a pissed off Kyle Connor, that might be a whole other level, and we'll see how he comes out tonight. The Jets, by the way, play in Tampa Bay. If Kyle Connor wants to let Nikita Kucherov know in person that he didn't appreciate that, he'll have that chance in about a week or so from now. But yeah, it's Kyle Connor's been on his game, and the Jets, safe to say they dodged a bullet, that wasn't anything more than a black eye, that, he obviously didn't have a concussion, and that's a good thing. The Jets, would not want to lose anybody right now, let alone their leading goal scorer.
Well, no doubt. And he spoke to that as well earlier today. I mean, speaking of dodging a bullet, I think Nikita Kucherov is fortunate not to at least get an invoice from NHL Player Safety on a fine for that play.
He didn't even get a penalty. Like those, and I hate to be one of those complain about
refs
the refs.
Suck guy.
Yeah, but let me make this clear. There's people that think there's a conspiracy. There's no conspiracy against the Winnipeg Jets, folks. Gary Bettman has not sent a memo out to NHL officials saying we've got to reel this team from Winnipeg in. They're playing too well.
Too good.
Let's start to try and balance this out. That's not happening. This is just general incompetence. And the other night it was the Jets who I would say got the short end of the stick. They still won 7-4, which tells you a lot about how they're playing. Tonight it might be Utah that gets screwed. And look around the league, like the NHL does have an officiating problem. We saw it back, even on the road trip last week, like the game management stuff that happens. That interference call against Dylan Sandberg when the Jets were up 3-0, that Scott Arniel just absolutely lost his mind over, because that was not a penalty. It's not a penalty under any situation, but the refs decided the Jets were up 3 goals, and let's give the team that's down 3 a chance to make this a little more competitive. So anyways, we could do a whole show. We could do a week's worth of shows on officiating. The men in stripes had a bad night the other night. And just to conclude this, for those who wonder, like, are there any consequences for referees? Yes, there are. They're not immediate. They're certainly not publicized. But I'll say this. Every referee, every game is graded and assessed internally. And, you know, at the end of the season, when playoff assignments get handed out, and that's where these guys can make some extra coin, it's always telling who is and who isn't included in playoff assignments. And I know Chris Lee was one of the officials the other day. I forget who the other guy was, but I would imagine neither of those guys graded out very well for their performance on Sunday.
No, listen, I don't spend too much time getting on the refs. I mean, listen, they're like players. So they'll have good games. They'll have bad games. They stunk on Sunday. That was basically it. And to the Jets' credit, I mean, they overcame it. Yeah. What everyone was talking about was the absurd result of the coach's challenge on the first goal that then gave Tampa a power play, which they scored on. And two sides of this, Mike. I mean, we've heard from all sorts of people in the hockey world. I've yet to hear anybody say they got it right. But more importantly for the Winnipeg Jets, that sort of thing is going to come at you at times throughout the season. The way they responded against a very good Tampa team was very impressive. And it put together, I think, one of the more important wins of the season so far, knowing what's to come with some bigger dogs on the schedule, kind of after tonight going into this Central Division and the upcoming road trip.
Yeah, and again, this isn't a Jets thing. I mean, if you would have showed me that goal the other night, doesn't matter which teams were involved, I would say 100 times out of 100, I'd say that should not be a goal. And, Connor Hellebuck, for some reason, seems to always be on the wrong end of things that just, we go back to the goal scored in Dallas a couple years ago with where his mask had come off. I'll give Connor Hellebuck credit. Like he doesn't just complain. He's tried to help. He's done presentations with the league. He's gone on the committee, and made the case for the goaltending union. And I would imagine, Huss, like, even if you went and asked the Tampa Bay goaltenders from the other night, they probably were stunned that counted. And, goalies are kind of a fraternity. Like, is there a single goalie out there that wants that to be a goal?
Definitely not.
I think in real time, like, maybe the initial thought was, how can he make the save? He's got Connor Geekie sitting on top of him. But the bigger issue was what actually happened before that, when clearly you can see Geekie's stick shove Connor Hellebuck's pad back into the net, kind of move him into a different position, which he never has a chance to recover from. That is an incidental contact. That's not a Jets player causing Geekie to do that. That was absurd that counted as a goal. And you're right, and then it leads to a power play, which leads to a second goal. Good on the Jets, though, for not letting that. If anything, it seemed to strengthen their resolve. And we've seen the Jets erase some deficits so far this season. We know this team can put up the goals, and they certainly did that in spades the other night.
Well, and I think it just speaks to, this entire road trip, but especially on Sunday, it was a game where so many different players had a very important role in that comeback. The goals were spread out, around it. You had Alex Iafallo in the second power play unit getting that big one. You had Dylan Sandberg scoring. You had Logan Stanley scoring. And Stanley in particular, making an impact in that game with a massive hit, accepting a fight, getting the power play for the club with the instigator that then turned into a power play goal at an important part of the third period. And, Mike, I go back to what Kyle Connor had to say today. And, here's Piper.
There you go.
I was listening to what Kyle Connor had to say, and there was a lot of comments just on, how mature, but also how determined they seem. And they're not, getting fat and happy with this start.
Right.
Credit to Scott Arniel for keeping them focused on what they have to do. But, there's a lot of different ways you can go as a team after a disappointment like happened last year in Colorado. And if the early results are any indication of how they have handled this, it'd be hard to imagine much better based on their record and the way they continue to play.
Yeah, and to be clear, the Jets can't I guess, exercise their playoff demons in October or November. I mean, they won't get a chance to do that until April. But of course, they have to make sure they get to the playoffs before they can try to exercise those demons. And this is a group that clearly has come out with a renewed commitment to defense. They're showing that this wasn't just a one and done. Last year they win the President's Trophy, and that this wasn't just a one and done, and they weren't going to use that playoff failure as an excuse, I guess, to abandon a lot of that structure and those key elements that built such a great regular season. At the same time, and this was the premise of the question that I asked to Kyle Connor, it must be quite rewarding to, still have that strong defensive foundation, but to not be losing anything at all in the offensive end. In fact, the Jets are generating more than I think anybody would have imagined. They've scored 59 goals. They put up a half dozen in 50% of their games, which is absurd. There will be some teams, Huss, who probably don't score 6 goals in 6 different games all year. The Jets have done it in 12 games, including 3 in a row. And yeah, Kyle Connor had some really thoughtful comments on that structure and how it took a long time, that's something they've been working at for years. And then he went back to the core and how this core is very determined to kind of right some wrongs from the past. And, he talked about going to ownership or going to management after previous years and having some really candid talks. So I think if you're a Jets fan, you got to love what Kyle Connor had to say today. And, it's not just words, they're backing them up with their actions on the ice. And it's making for a very impressive start to this hockey season.
Well, and listen, I mean, speaking of Connor, I mean, what he's done, in the offensive zone, getting takeaways
Right.
and creating more offensive time has been awesome. But maybe the play that speaks to just how bought in this group is, led by Kyle Connor, was that incredible back check he had last game when Josh Morrissey's stick blew up.
Yeah.
I'm not sure that play happens as successfully, shall we say, in previous seasons. But there's a lot of guys that are leading from the front right now, and I'd say 81's at the top of that list.
And, when it doesn't matter who you are on the Jets, when you see your leading scorer absolutely bust it to get back and make the play that he did, combined with, I think Connor Hellebuck also made a bit of a save there. But clearly Kyle Connor negated, turned maybe a grade A scoring chance into more of like a C or a D. And it was all based on hustle, covering for a teammate. Like that stuff goes a long way in the room. And, whether you're a star player or a role player, when you see Kyle Connor doing that sort of thing, I think it makes everyone in the room better. And it also sets a standard that everybody is going to be held, accountable to and for. And so far, this team has really passed those tests. And you go back to his comments about Scott Arniel. I found it interesting, Huss, that, right, like last Friday night, there we were in Columbus immediately after a second straight 6-2 victory. At that point, to improve the Jets to 10-1. One of the first things Scott Arniel says to me outside the dressing room in Columbus, as the Jets are now heading home for 4 straight, he brings up the loss to Toronto from 2 games ago and how that was the last kind of thing that they did on home ice, and how he's going to, remind his group about that. At that point, they played 11 games. They've won 10 of them. And he's bringing up the one loss as kind of a, hey, let's be careful. And then you see how the Jets come out and play the other night. And it's pretty clear that message resonated. And they have no shortage of motivation on a nightly basis. And, you're seeing it on a shift-by-shift basis where this team, you almost get the sense like that they're a threat to score every time they're out there, Huss. Whether it's the power play or more lately 5-on-5, which has really come around. So, yeah, this is a team that whether it's some of the outside noise about, maybe people overlooking them, or just the internal expectations and pressure that they put on themselves, Whatever the case, whatever's fueling it, it has been quite the ride so far.
Hey, shout out to our pal Ezzy Ginsburg from Illegal Curve popping into the chat. What's up, Ez? Great to have you here. Ez is fired up, as is everyone. And you mentioned what Kyle Connor has done so far this year. One of the more interesting things, and we spoke a little bit about the 5-on-5 play early on. That really has turned around. And Mike, I got to tell you, and I never at the end of the game looked at whatever the advanced stats were, but that game on Friday, the second half and particularly the third period, was as dominant at 20 minutes I can remember. I likened it to, a boxer that has, he's comfortably ahead on rounds, and if it goes to a decision, he knows he's going to win, but spends the final couple rounds throwing haymakers and trying to end the fight. That was the Jets against the Blue Jackets. And, as they say, if you're able to do that and say what you will about the opponents, the fact that they're able to exert their will over teams like that consistently, I think that was a big reason why they were able to just continue doing what they were doing after a pretty adverse start with the 2 goals going in on Sunday afternoon.
Yeah, you're right about that Columbus game, Hassan. I saw a stat what the shots and shot attempts were in the first 5 minutes of each of the 3 periods in Columbus. It was an insane discrepancy, including the third period when the Jets at that point, they're pretty comfortably in control. And like you said, there was no let up. You'd expect the other team to kind of try to come on when they fall behind. But the Jets, they didn't take their collective feet off the throats, if you will. And that says a few things to me. That says that's a team that they're starting on time, and they're starting every period on time. They're coming out with the right approach. They're setting the tone. And, we often see it with the Lowry line. Typically that line starts the game. And more often than not, they're spending the first 45 seconds in the other team's end. And then it just goes in waves from there. And it's happening at the start of games. It's happening at the start of periods. And it's why this team is built. I think they now I think the number is 7 comeback wins already this year. And a comeback win, that's when that's coming back at any point in a game from any deficit. The Jets have had a lot of them because until the last few games, they were constantly giving up the first goal and yet still winning. But, to have 7, they have more comeback wins than most teams have wins, period, at this point in the season. And that just tells you that, whether it's a 1-goal, 2-goal deficit, this team has enough confidence in itself to know that it can get out of that hole. They did it again against a really good Tampa team the other day. And for all those kind of critics that have been saying, but the schedule, who have the Jets really beat? To play a good Tampa team like they just did, a Tampa team that was coming off a disappointing loss 2 nights earlier, that I think, that might have been the most impressive victory of the 11 so far this season, maybe other than opening night in Edmonton, where they went in and absolutely demolished the Western Conference champs.
Mike, we could kind of go down the list of players that have had great starts. I mean, the Jets now have already have, just through 12 games, have 8 players in double digits in points, 5 players averaging over a point a game. Now, Kyle Connor is leading the way, and there was the question as to him whether he's playing his best hockey of his career, and he said he'd sort of let everyone else to determine that. I think it's pretty damn close if it's not 100% sure. But the other guy that's just 2 points back of him is Nikolai Ehlers. And I kind of laughed having a conversation with the friend, remembering the angst about that line after 3 games. He is leading the way right now. And I think in a lot of ways, this is what management has always thought about having Ehlers in that spot. He is a guy that can drive a line. And now Cole Perfetti's feeling it. He's having a lot more confidence. And Vladimir Metsnikov kind of being that, guy that can contribute in so many different ways. But to me, Ehlers is playing some of the best hockey we've seen from him. He's got that confidence. It's going right now and starting to get the results. I mean, this will, of course, be accompanied by a bunch of hand-wringing from people as to what the future of Nikolai Ehlers is. But for right now, His agent's probably smiling because he's putting up numbers unlike at any point in his career, and he is impacting the game in so many different ways for the Jets.
The King of Denmark, although he didn't like the moniker bestowed upon him the other night. But the Great Dane, if you will, now the leading scorer from that nation. One real tell, Huss, about kind of how well he's playing. Look at his 5-on-5 minutes. We at one point earlier this year, like I started referring to the Lowry line as the second line because they kind of were in terms of deployment. Like early in the year, the Ehlers line was getting third line minutes. The Scheifele line and then the Lowry line, they were getting bigger minutes. Not so much the last half dozen or so games. And, maybe it's a bit of chicken and the egg that Arneil's using him and trusting him a bit more and he's producing, or vice versa. He's producing because he's being used in a more significant way. Whatever the case, Nikolai Ehlers, I think I saw most recently, he's like, other than the Scheifele trio on that line, like he's next in line for most 5-on-5 minutes lately. And that's a sign that Nikolai Ehlers is going really well and that Scott Arniel is paying him, respect for that performance. And, there's a lot of people, I guess, that are saying, is there a huge difference between Arniel and Bowness and coaching styles and philosophies? And, while clearly you don't necessarily see on a day-by-day basis like huge stark differences, I think there's little subtleties that you can notice. And the way that Scott Arniel has leaned on Ehlers, kind of in a way that previous coaches, whether it was Rick Bowness or Dave Lowry and Paul Maurice before, those are minutes that people have been kind of calling for years, right? Well, now he's starting to get them and he's really making the most of them. He's obviously on that top power play unit, which is, the Jets have the best power play in the league. And, dare I say, talking about a line mate, look who was out there the other night late in a 1-goal game with the goalie pulled, Cole Perfetti. He's out there defending a lead. That's something that Rick Bowness would not have had Cole Perfetti out there, and he gets an empty netter. We asked Scott Arniel a bit about that. So I think you're noticing not just Ehlers, but that whole line. He's using them more, he's trusting them more, and they're showing their coach that trust is worth it, really.
Mike, I want to quickly touch on, because listen, we could talk about Ehlers for a long time, and there will be plenty of options for that. But I mentioned, great start for Neil Pionk. I mean, those guys had that one bad game, completely bounced back with an impact game in Detroit, and have just kept on rolling. Josh Morrissey, to me, started that entire turnaround on Sunday. I mean, that pass that he made was just world class onto the stick of Vlad, who popped it in. We've got a month till the Four Nations rosters are, and it's been quite interesting to see different people's mock-ups and who's on it. I think we can pretty much lock in Connor Hellebuck, obviously, and Kyle Connor for Team USA. Where are you at with Team Canada and potential participation from Winnipeg Jets? I think Josh Morrissey should be a lock, although he's not, depending on who you talk to. And then very intrigued as to whether a Mark Scheifele or even an Adam Lowry can get themselves into that conversation. I'll tell you one thing, playing the way they are right now and winning the amount of games is certainly not going to hurt.
No, it isn't. And I noticed with interest, Huss, like on the road trip last week through Detroit and Columbus, who was in the building those nights. Julian Brisbaugh and Don Sweeney were at the Red Wings game watching the Jets. And then on Friday in Detroit, it was Don Sweeney and Kyle Dubas. And the reason those guys are interesting is they're all part of the management team for the Four Nations. And Sweeney and Dubas, I believe, are also on the Olympic management team. And, I was looking at the roster of the Red Wings and the Blue Jackets. There's nobody of note Canadian on those rosters. So I don't think it's a big leap to suggest that if those guys were there to do some scouting, they were primarily looking at the Jets as opposed to the Red Wings and the Blue Jackets in terms of potential Canadian involvement. And, Josh Morrissey, he's just stringing together good game after good game, great game after great game. Kind of up there among the scoring leaders for defensemen in the league. Mark Scheifele's having a great start to his year, solid two-way playmaking, scoring. I think Morrissey is an absolute lock. I really do. I think Mark Scheifele's probably, I'd still lean towards him being on the team, but if I had to put odds, I'm more like maybe 60-40. And Adam Lowry, well, I think deserves to get a look, and I think he is. I'd put him, definitely in the long shot category. I guess it all depends on what Team Canada wants to do with its roster. If they truly want a shutdown center that can kill penalties and add a physical element, then absolutely Adam Lowry would be in that mix. I just don't know if that's what they're looking at. But it is an interesting thing to debate for sure.
Yeah, I made the case last week that, potentially we should pay more attention to Adam Lowry and his potential inclusion on the team, or at least in those decisions, because of the history of the way Canada has built its teams. And the other side is, whether it's, there's enough guys that are locks and already on the team that whether we're talking about Scheifele or Lowry, you're basically looking at that 11, 12, 13th forward position. And Adam Lowry is just such a unique player. And the role that he's accustomed to playing is a lot different than most of the superstars that'll be on Team Canada. So to me, he's a really intriguing name. And, it's funny. There's some people who are saying, give the guys the 2 weeks off to rest. It would be fine. We know how important it is to players like Josh, certainly to Mark Scheifele.
Oh, for sure.
You'd love to see them. And as I say, it's certainly not hurting the way they're playing right now, making all of that happen. Mike, what are you doing on Saturday? Are you going to be doubling up like many fans?
Yeah, I'm covering the Jets game, of course. I'm not planning on attending, but I am planning on rushing home as quickly as possible, filing my piece, and then obviously taking in the Bomber game off the.
You're not going to the Bomber game.
I am not going to the Bomber game. I know. I'll put it this way: my wife and I were leaving on vacation bright and early Sunday morning. We're heading to Vegas for a week, so I got some packing and everything to do as well. I know it probably makes me a bad Winnipegger, but I'll be.
Come on.
Looks like a beautiful weather day for it, though. It should be a great day.
Oh, listen, cannot wait. We're going to talk Bombers Riders coming up. And I imagine we'll get into some Jets talk, too, because I know Rob Vanstone may be on the other side come Sunday, or Saturday, but is a big fan of the Winnipeg Jets. All right, one final Piper appearance on the program today.
She is absolutely wired for sound. Like she is ready to go.
I'll let you get back to the rumble in your basement, Mike, and we'll see you at the rink tonight. Thanks for doing this.
Right on. Take care.
Good stuff with Mike McIntyre. We are going to talk Bombers Riders and head to Regina in just a minute. But first, a big cheers from our friends at Little Brown Jug.
We're not just for the showboats or the champions. We're here for the good ones. The ones who work hard and show up for others not to get recognized, but because it's the right thing to do. We'd like to think that our good intentions show up in our beer. We keep working to perfect it, not because we want fame or fanfare, but because you deserve it. 1919, the good you deserve.
All right, big cheers from our friends at Little Brown Jug, available at some Boston pizzas now, including BP Polo Park. Man, that was a great party we had last week as the Jets started a new winning streak against the Detroit Red Wings. Tonight, Thursday, and of course Saturday, Jets hockey, you know where to be, your local Boston Pizza, pick a player contest, your chance to spin the wheel, win great prizes from BP and Royal Sports, and of course enter that grand prize giveaway later on this season to see the Jets and Bruins in Boston with deluxe hotel, airfare, tickets to the game, and BP is going to send you to see the world champion Celtics as well the night before. Boston Pizza, always the game on the big screen with big sound, and of course you can order for delivery at home if you can't make it out tonight at bostonpizza.com. And Hey, big shout out to our friends at Royal Sports. Told you yesterday, Nick Ehlers is on this heater with a bunch of sticks off the rack from Royal. Obviously, your number one hockey superstore. But for fan gear and you Dodgers fans that have been waiting, the new gear is in. World Series tees are in today. The hats should be in later this week, the championship hats. And Greg's got a bunch of great stuff, a cool Dodgers jacket, Freddie Freeman jerseys, and again, the World Series champion T-shirts right there. So for all of you Dodger fans that, want to celebrate a real championship, unlike the one that you won in 2020, well, this is the one. We'll grant you that. Get on down to Royal Sports. It is all there. And, of course, you might want to grab some Jets gear and Bomber gear to double it up for Super Saturday coming up. Of course, it starts with the Dallas Stars and the Jets and then finishes with the Riders and the Bombers. We're going to be talking about that with Rod Vanstone. But pop by Royal Sports, 750 Pembina Highway, and check them out on Instagram as well at Royal Sports Winnipeg for the latest merchandise drops and sale information. All right, to Regina we go. The countdown to Bombers Riders Episode 4 for the season for all the marbles, and Rob Vanstone joins us in. Rob, it's great to have you back on the program. How are you?
I'm good, Huss. How you doing? I'm not sure I can offer content comparable to Mike and Piper. If I was doing this from home as opposed to Mosaic Stadium, we could have a Candy cameo, but no such luck today. So she's really cute too.
Well, listen, we'll make a point of doing that sometime. And hey, listen, just before we get to football, let's talk about a team we could all agree on, the Winnipeg Jets. How about this start? I know you're glued to what the hockey team's doing night in and night out.
Yeah, I'm not sure if I haven't told anybody with the Roughriders yet, but I'm actually going to go to the Jets game on Saturday. What's that?
I said, hey, if you can make it happen, do it. I mean, that's going to be the play. Jets at 2, Bombers at 5:30.
If Mark Chipman could respectfully change the face-off to 9 a.m., I think I can pull that one off. So, it's really a neat experience to see what the Jets are doing and to hear them being talked about. They had a good start last year. People were talking about them very early on as Stanley Cup contenders, and obviously it didn't end that way. But I really like the way Scott Arniel has handled things. I was a little skeptical at the start, thinking, okay, is this just going to be an endorsement of a formula that, while not without successes, doesn't really have much of a culmination at the end of the season? And obviously there's several chapters yet to be written, but I love what Scott Arniel does and has been doing. And I love that finally there's a head coach in Winnipeg who's just going to let Nick Ehlers do what he does. Enough of this.
Doing a lot of
this
it right
chatter
now.
about he's only getting this much ice time. He's not on the power play, etc. At long last. How long have we been waiting for this, for him to be used that way? And we're seeing, it's not. I remember this with John Elway in Denver, and they had Dan Reeves as the head coach, and they had a really conservative offense. And John Elway's best numbers statistically started at age 33, when finally there was a coach that let John Elway be John Elway. And obviously Nick Ehlers is much younger, but I think we're seeing, okay, if handled the right way and given the ice time he merits and the responsibilities he deserves, look what we've got here. And he's just one of many forwards who's performing brilliantly this year.
Well, and listen, I mean, the power play has been one of the biggest stories. I mean, how many times last year on this program we were lamenting the state of the Jets power play and what could be if it got going. I mean, you want to talk about a complete turnaround. They are tearing the league up right now, 44.1%, a 10-point gap between the Colorado Avalanche, who are the number 2 team in the league at 34%. And, of course, Ehlers has been a huge catalyst of all of that. But, Rob, we got to get to the game on the West Final. Bombers Riders, the best rivalry in the Canadian Football League. You couldn't write this up any better. The Riders, after that, lull of not winning a game for about 2 months, are looking good again. And I imagine there's a lot of excitement in Rider Nation coming off that big win against BC with their chance to go up and take on the Winnipeg Blue Bombers for in the most impactful game of the year with the trip to the Grey Cup on the line.
Yeah, exactly, Huss. I mean, I think both teams have kind of had an opportunity to spin out of a bit of a skid. Look what the Bombers went through early in the year, and now they're the Winnipeg Blue Bombers again. And I don't think that's overly surprising when you consider who's there and who's in charge. And what's happened with the Roughriders doesn't surprise me either, given the leadership of Corey Mason, with Trevor Harris being himself, Jeremy O'Day, and the depth he has brought in to allow this team to do what it's done. So there's such a buzz about this, and I going into Winnipeg with an opportunity to advance to the Grey Cup by winning there, I think that's and Corey Mason said this, Trevor Harris has said this. The Bombers have earned that. This is the way it should be, and if they're going to relinquish their crown, it should be on their turf. And I think it's going to be one of those games, as Rider games have tended to be this year, and as the Bombers Roughriders games have tended to be, it's going to be a right down to the wire type of thing. And with such a buzz, I can hardly wait to get to Winnipeg. That's going to be so cool. I can't imagine. Last time I saw a Western final in Winnipeg, it was 1972. So I think I'm overdue for another one.
Oh, you weren't here for Bombers Riders a few years ago, back in December? That was a cold one.
No, I was at the Regina Leader Post Center. Murray McCormick, our excellent beat writer, was covering that game, and I was watching it with the aforementioned Candy on the recliner. So I was 8 years old, and Mom took me to the 72 Western Final, and Riders won 27-24 in a last-minute field goal by Jack Abichat from 32 yards out. Bombers were up 24-7, and Ronnie and George took it from there, and so it's going to be neat to see a game of that magnitude again. And my mental age is still 8, so it all fits.
Listen, there's nothing like when these teams play. And it's special on Labor Day. It's special on the Banjo Bowl. I mean, even their game early on in the season is a little bit more than just a regular season game. This is the playoffs, though. I mean, this is for all the marbles. And from a Rider perspective, Rob, let me ask you this. I mean, I think no matter what happens on Sunday, this season has been a huge success for Saskatchewan. I mean, Corey Mason's come in, has established a new culture, built a very, very good team. You made the playoff. You won a playoff game at home. Like, are the Riders playing with house money going into this game on Saturday afternoon here in Winnipeg?
Yeah, I mean, I think you're right. If it is to stop here, I think you can still look at the season and say it's a progressive step. But don't you dare ask anybody in football operations or on the roster, because I think what's happened recently has only whetted the appetite for going further. And I remember in 2007 when the Riders had a big year and got to the Grey Cup, and there were certain points where, okay, you get the home playoff game for the first time in 18 years, and you get to the Grey Cup for the first time since 97, and you reach certain benchmarks that are so clearly an advancement over what was there previously, and you know that part of the story of the season will be, okay, it's one of progress, but it's just once you get to that certain point, it'd be kind of a shame to see that come to a halt. So it's when you look at where the team was last time, it was in Winnipeg, and there was that heartbreaker of a loss on the second weekend of December, and it looked, I think a lot of people were writing off the Roughriders at that point. And but I remember Trevor Harris saying after the game that he still has a lot of belief in this team, and once there's a win, he thinks it could just catch fire, and his words have been prophetic. And so I'm really looking forward to this matchup. There's just so many intriguing elements to it. I mean, once upon a time in 2012, the Argonauts had 2 rookie quarterbacks named Trevor Harris and Zach Claros, both from Ohio. Look at it now, right?
I mean, there's so many interesting connections, between the teams, the organizations, obviously the fans. But I really do think that this matchup on Saturday is as close as we've seen in a long time. I mean, obviously the Riders had a lot of work to do to kind of catch up, but I think they've done that. I mean, when I look at the Saskatchewan team, I look at a championship level defense that has been playing at a very high level all year long. And now that they're running right now, I mean, this offense led by Trevor Harris, I think can do a lot of different things. You've got those 2 beasts in the backfield, a very good receiving core. And listen, that's what you need to do to beat the Bombers, especially at this time of year where they have been consistently so good and so difficult to beat. And then on the Bombers side, I mean, a defense that really started that entire turnaround, and an offense that, while has had their moments looking like the Bombers of 2 or 3 years ago. Sometimes, some quieter times, particularly against the Argos this year. I mean, Rob, it just sets up such an intriguing battle that, the Bombers are going to be favored by a little bit based on the home field. But I think you could make an argument that this is as close to a toss-up game as we've seen, certainly when these two teams have played for the last number of years, considering how much success the Bombers have had at the expense of Saskatchewan.
If you just go back to the regular season and the Labor Day game here, the difference was a 2-point convert near the end. And the subsequent weekend in Winnipeg, the Bombers got off to a hot start. Riders were able to come back, and that game was decided in the final minute or two. And that's the way the Roughriders have played football this year. The Bombers, through this reign that they've had, I mean, they haven't all been cakewalks. I mean, it's not like when they were winning, they were beating everybody 40-0. I mean, this is a team that, when challenged, has risen to the occasion, and so I expect a game that's right down to the wire, right for the duration. That's what's intriguing. I think it's one of those prize fight type of atmospheres, champion versus challenger, and it's a coin flip to me, and I'm just so intrigued by this. I think the atmosphere is going to be unbelievable. I can't imagine how loud it's going to be in Winnipeg. And we had such an atmosphere here for the West semifinal against BC, where the crowd was deafening. And I experienced the crowd for the Labor Day rematch in September, and I couldn't believe how amazingly loud that was. So, it's going to be so amazing. I am just so excited about this game, and
me too. This is how you work for this all year to give yourself the opportunity to play in a championship game. And listen, we knew the West Final was going to be a dandy, regardless of who played in it. But it's a little better having this great rivalry with such high stakes. How's the team feeling coming out of that game? I mean, obviously, big advantage for the Bombers not having to play last week. They had to go and take out a good BC team. Did they make it through relatively unscathed? How's the health of the team right now coming out of their win on the weekend?
For a pretty bruising, grueling game in November in Saskatchewan, the team came out of it pretty well. Miles Brown, defensive tackle, he got nicked, but I think
our favorite guy, Miles Brown.
Miles Brown is an awesome person. I love Miles, great guy, and I'm not sure I haven't seen the injury report yet, but he came out of that game limping a bit. And aside from that, Trevor Reed, the starting left tackle, got hurt. It sounds like he is going to be able to play this week, but when you look at some of the scroll-like injury lists that we've seen this year, this one's going to be considerably shorter. So coming out of that game, I think it'll be interesting to see how the winning team fares, because that is going to be such a slugfest on the prairies in November.
I don't know whether you have a good read or gauge on this, but, the Bombers were already over 30,000 seats sold going into the weekend. But I don't think it was a coincidence that shortly after the Saskatchewan Roughriders won the West Semi, the game was officially sold out. Do you think that there'll be many fans of the Saskatchewan Roughriders making the trip into the Peg for the big game?
I would think so. I don't know how many seats would have been available given the healthy appetite for tickets in Winnipeg before the Bombers' opponent was decided. But going back to previous games in Winnipeg, there's always that blue interspersed with the green. So when you consider the magnitude of this game, I'd expect there'd be a few, probably not as many as in Calgary where it tends to overrun the stadium, because there's so many Bombers fans in general to occupy those seats. But I would not be surprised to see a healthy representation of people in green. Now we'll just see who ends up cheering the loudest once the game begins, because the crowd is going to be a factor, and everybody here has been talking about that. They had the volume blaring at practice today, preparing for the offense for what they're walking into, and so that only adds to the buzz, the electricity when you walk into the stadium.
You know what the crazy thing about it is, Rob? This doesn't look like it's going to really feel like November in Winnipeg. Looks like daytime temps high of around 11. Now, obviously, the sun will be down and it'll be significantly less, but we're not talking about, a minus 15 or minus 20 like when these two teams played a few years ago. And I'm not sure if that's really an advantage for either team at all. I think both of these teams are built to play their best at this time of year. But I think it certainly makes for a more pleasant viewing experience, which might get that crowd ratcheted up even more. And as far as Rider fans coming, I hope there's some coming in. It always adds. That's why it's fun to go to Regina representing the Bombers on Labor Day and have our friends from Regina come here on for the Banjo Bowl the following week, because it just adds so much. And as they say, when you got a rivalry like this with the history of it, with two great fan bases that support the teams, could not have a better setup for the game on Sunday. Hey, before we go, you got any feel on this East matchup between Toronto and Montreal? I mean, speaking of toss-ups, I mean, I think you can make an argument for all four teams to win their respective games this weekend.
That's what makes this final week or the week leading up to the division championship so intriguing. And the Grey Cup matchup, whatever it's going to be, is going to be intriguing. It's really hard, having watched what the Toronto Argonauts did this weekend, to think that they're going to be have any not have any difficulty, but they're not going to win again. I just looked at that team and that what they did to Ottawa, and that just seems like a team that's peaking at the right time. And the way Chad Kelly went 18 for 20, and I think Toronto still got a bit of a bad feeling over last year going 16-2 and then not making it to the Grey Cup. And you just wonder if that's going to be a bit of a factor as well. Montreal keeps proving people wrong. It's dangerous to pick against them at any juncture, as was proven last year. But Toronto just seems to be so formidable at this point. I would tend to lean in that direction. So that pretty much cinches it for Montreal.
Yeah.
I'm never right.
Well, I tell you what, listen, we're going to be at the hockey game first, so we'll probably just be paying attention to what's going on in that East Final, but best believe that this city is ready to go for your Riders to make their trip to Princess Auto Stadium and play for a trip to the Grey Cup. Rob, always great catching up with you. We will be allies tonight as the Jets take on Utah HC. And we're looking forward to seeing you, the Riders, and probably some Sask fans coming in for what should be a hell of a football game on Saturday. Thanks so much for doing this, and have a safe trip here.
Thanks so much, Hassan. Next time we do this, I will have Candy, and it will really help your ratings because she's beautiful.
Perfect. Hey, listen.
Candy's my dog, by the way.
You can bring Candy and Candy the dog, for that matter. Have a great one, pal. Thanks for doing this. All right, there's Rob Vanstone. Great stuff with Rob. Man, this game is going to be awesome. Stay tuned, by the way, for those of you that are going to the Bomber game. I think I've managed to get some tickets for the hockey game on Saturday, so maybe we'll try and see who's ready for the sports marathon day and who's going to double up. We'll do that over the course of the next couple of days here on Winnipeg Sports Talk. Speaking of tickets, by the way, obviously, hopefully see some your butts in the seats for the first place team in the NHL tonight, Thursday, and of course Saturday. Don't forget, though, our next Winnipeg Sports Talk game is going to be against the defending Stanley Cup champion Florida Panthers and Paul Maurice. November 19th is the day. Grab your seats right now with our Winnipeg Sports Talk group. Go to winnipegjets.com/WST. You'll see the remaining 5 games. We've got a game of the month. The December one's going to be really fun, too. Sort of a little holiday party on the Saturday night heading into Christmas with the Minnesota Wild coming in. But right now, the push is on for Tuesday, November 19th. Can the Jets go 5-0 against Paul Maurice since he bounced? We will see. They are 4-0 against their former head coach since he went to South Florida. And always a great chance to measure yourselves against the defending Stanley Cup champ. So that's going to be a great one. Jump on it with us, winnipegjets.com/WST. Get your tickets today, and hopefully we'll see a whole bunch of you for all of our games of the month as we continue through the season. All right, let's get over to the Coolbet Lines. And I should mention, we were talking with Mike about the Four Nations Cup. When you get to Coolbet, click on the promotions, and the first one there is a great promo for any of you hockey bettors, where you can win a trip for 2 to Boston for the Four Nations face-off. Basically how it works is over the course of November and December, click on that. You see there's an opt-in, and just opt in and activate it. And every time you bet $20 on NHL action, you'll earn one raffle ticket for a chance to win an unforgettable trip for two to Boston for the NHL's Four Nations face-off. The grand prize includes 2 round-trip flights to Boston, 2 nights hotel accommodations, and 2 tickets to the Four Nations Championship game on February 20th at 8 p.m. What a dream trip that would be. But listen, there's also a couple secondary prizes, including a $250 Coolbet bonus to keep the good times rolling, and a Coolbet merch prize pack to rep your favorite sports book. And there you can see it right there. You just click on that, click on the opt-in. You'll see what the promo code is. And then every time you're betting $20 on a hockey game, you'll get a raffle ticket, and maybe one of our WST listeners could be the lucky winner. If you win, I'm available to go with you. Just saying. I would be more than happy to ride shotgun with anybody winning those tickets to Boston for the Four Nations Championship game. We'll probably get into some Four Nations odds as well over the course of the next little bit in the lock shop. But anyways, check that out. And while we're at it, we got a ton of hockey tonight, focusing in our Winnipeg Jets, who, not surprisingly, are a pretty significant favorite tonight, minus 217, going up against the Hockey Club, Utah plus 182. The total in this game is 6. The Jets have been smashing these overs lately with how many goals that they've been scoring just on their own. And if you do like the Jets by 2 tonight, you can get them at minus 1.5 at plus 117. As far as goal scorers tonight, Black Eye Kyle Connor, plus 119. Clayton Keller, plus 157, the top star on Utah. Then we've got Mark Scheifele at plus 165. Nikolai Ehlers, plus 172. And Gabriel Velarde, who's had some magic with both of his line mates over the last couple games, at plus 195. Now, I did put together a little WST parlay for tonight, and we weren't going to go with any particular goal scorers, so we're going to take the Jets to win, and we're looking for Ehlers, Perfetti, and Josh Morrissey all to get a point. That's plus 350. We've had some nice luck lately cashing these WST parlays, so as long as the team keeps winning, let's keep on taking advantage of it. Plus 350 in the exclusives right now for the Jets game tonight. As far as the rest of the action goes tonight, we got a very busy night. Ottawa, minus 119, road favorites in Buffalo. The Canes, I think the biggest favorite of the day, minus 303 at home to Philly. Montreal is a plus 121 home dog to Calgary. Calgary minus 143. The Bruins and Leafs playing, no Austin Matthews. Boston plus 106. They kind of got back going again. Back-to-back wins and back-to-back shutouts after getting embarrassed and giving up 8 last week, I believe, to Carolina. Leafs without Matthews, minus 125. The Islanders are minus 133 favorites against Pittsburgh. The Wild, 8-1-2 on the season. They are minus 175 favorites at home against the Kings. The Lightning, who, of course, we saw on Sunday, they've moved on to St. Louis. They're minus 175 favorites in the Lou. We've got the Jets, Kraken, Utah, I should say. Kraken, Avalanche tonight. Colorado, minus 175 favorite. Vancouver laying minus 238 against the Anaheim Ducks, the Honda Center. In the final game, it's the Columbus Blue Jackets taking on the San Jose Sharks. Columbus, a minus 130 favorite to get back in the win column after a couple tough losses to Winnipeg and Washington in their last few outings. And just while we're at it, has the Jets Cup number changed at all? Started off at 25-1, went to 22-1. Now the Jets are 20-1 right now. So listen, they keep playing the way they are. That number will come down. You might want to get it right now. And the Jets plus 245 to win the Central Division as well. Dallas plus 180, the favorite on that. But Jets right now the second favorite to win the division. And a big gap over Colorado and Minnesota and Nashville, which is interesting based on the respective starts of those 3 teams. A great start for Minnesota and an ugly start for Colorado and the Nashville Predators. Head on over to Coolbet. Use the promo code WST if you haven't played there before for a 100% bonus up to $200 on your first deposit. And don't forget to opt in for the Four Nations contest. Anytime you bet $20 or more on NHL hockey, you'll get a raffle ticket to win that amazing trip or two to the championship game of the Four Nations. How cool would that be, Remis, to win that?
Yeah, that would be awesome. I don't think I've ever seen that type of international best on best hockey, and starting to get excited. You're starting to see people put out mock rosters. February, no All-Star break this year. Four Nations Cup. You got this bit of a compressed schedule here. The Jets playing every second day for a while, but all very exciting. Maybe a Four Nations pool? Can you do a pool on that?
I would imagine. I mean, it's a small enough tourney, but listen, there'll be a way to to get a little piece of action for the Four Nations Cup. I don't think we have to worry about that. I think that the markets that will be available on sites like Coolbet will be extensive right now. And actually, I'm going to lean on the guys to try and get some odds on guys to make the team. And it'll be interesting to see where they put our guys for Team Canada: Josh Morrissey, Mark Scheifele, and even Adam Lowry, who's I think thought of as a little bit more of a long shot. But we have historically seen Canada not take just all the 12 best offensive superstars. So maybe there is a spot, or at least for a conversation, that Adam Lowry could help this team win a gold medal. Remo, one more thing I should pop over at Coolbet. I have been watching the odds for this U.S. election over the course of the past 3 months or so. And Trump was like minus 238, I think, after he was shot. But he was minus 200. Kamala got a big bump. But we've sort of been paying attention all day today, and the number's actually coming back a little bit. Like, Trump was a pretty big favorite. I mean, minus 175 about an hour ago. He's now down to plus 161, and that Kamala number went from plus 155 to plus 150. The pollsters have been wrong, and in the last two elections, you could have gotten the eventual winner anywhere from 3-1 to 6-1 on election day. So I'm very intrigued in this, and not taking any sides. This is not a political conversation. But if you do think Kamala Harris can pull this thing off and get the 270 electoral votes needed, plus 150 is a pretty nice number.
Yeah, this is just from a strictly gambling perspective, Hustler. If you think the candidates are pretty close, plus 150 seems like some value, depending on who you talk to. Maybe it's not close at all in either direction. So we'll be tuned in while I'm at the Jets game. I'll be refreshing. What does the Score app have the Electoral College in there, or do they just have NHL scores on there?
To be honest, I think your best bet, and this is like, I haven't paid attention to any polls or anything like that. I've just been following the odds. And I think that, like, even more so than the votes coming back, because you don't know what's advanced polls, where the counties they're coming from. I think if you just pay attention to the live odds for this, you'll have a pretty good idea where things are going. Seems to be tightening up a little bit, but for you political wonks, if you want to jump on that, we don't normally have political odds to get to, but today's a pretty big day for our friends south of the border. What do we think, Reem? The show just keeps on rolling tonight?
The Jets, man, I'm very... the Jets should win. This is a game against Utah. Can they really win every game that they're supposed to win? I don't know. I feel like they might get tripped up what they lost last week on a Monday. It's Tuesday now. I feel like there's a target on their back. Teams are coming in knowing how hard you have to play. You just had this emotional game against Tampa where you had to come back from leads. You got two big games coming up against divisional opponents in Colorado and Dallas. I feel like it has potential here to be a letdown game. Vamelka's starting in net.
No, you already said that's fake news. Vamelka does not own the Jets. That was 3 years ago.
I already debunked that. I think they're probably going to win. I think they're going to, they've scored 6 goals at least in 3 straight. Utah, I think, has had trouble keeping the puck out of their net. The Jets should win here. And I'm probably have some Jets in my fantasy lineups tonight.
How could you not? I mean, that's how you're winning all these contests, throwing down with the Jets right now. Until further notice, the Jets are the play. I don't care who they're playing. And there may be even the thought about that puck line at plus 117, considering the way this team has been scoring goals as of late. It should be a real fun one. 7 o'clock puck drop down at Canada Life Center, Jets in Utah, as this homestand continues. And then, of course, Thursday night, we get the Avalanche in town for the first time this year. And then Super Saturday, Jets Dallas 2 p.m., Bombers Riders 5:30 p.m. for a trip to the Grey Cup. I cannot wait. That will be dominating our conversations throughout the week. We'll have much more to come on Bombers Riders tomorrow, as well as a full recap of this game tonight, the latest from Jets practice, and a look ahead to Thursday against the Colorado Avalanche. Thanks to Brogan Houston, who joined us earlier today talking Utah, Mike McIntyre, and Rob Vanstone as well. Folks, get out to the rink tonight if you've got nothing to do. Tickets are available, and teams, I can tell you there's not a lot of people that have been to Jet games this year that have been disappointed they went. So hopefully we'll see you at the rink tonight. But if not, you know where to see me. 1 p.m. tomorrow right here on WST along with Michael Remis. Thanks to all of our sponsors and all of you for making us a part of your day. Have a good one tonight, and we'll see you tomorrow.
Oh, my God! Oh! Shut it down! Let's go home!
Thanks for tuning in to Winnipeg Sports Talk Daily. Make sure to subscribe on YouTube and your favorite podcast feed at winnipegsportstalk.com.